Hi, I'm Linda Besmer with Muses 3, and today I'm going to show you a little bit about Freckle Social Studies and the myON program, both part of the Renaissance suite of products, and how you can use Freckle Social Studies and myON to help support Secondary Social Studies TEKS Readiness Standards here in Texas. Again, my name is Linda Besmer, and I'm with Muses 3. I'm going to be presenting today, but the resources that I'm going to be sharing with you were created by my partner, Dr. Carl Franklin. Carl has created 3 different resources that show TEKS readiness standards for grade 7, Texas history, grade 8, US history, specifically the Civil War, and US history, World War II, which would be for high school. We're going to take a more in-depth look today at grade 8 US history, specifically the Civil War. If you'd like to follow along, you can access the resources at https://bit.ly/M3_G8_civil_war. And if you need more information or have questions about the Freckle program, the myON program, or any of the resources available from Muses 3, you can contact me, Linda, at 281-923-6190 or via email, linda@muses3.com. I'm going to stop sharing that resource and actually show you what that TEKS resource looks like for the Civil War. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. I'll make this a little bit bigger. So as you can see, here's the readiness standard, which is TEKS 113.20.B.8.B. And the student is being asked to explain the central role of the expansion of slavery in causing sectionalism and disagreement over states' rights and the Civil War. We're going to take a look at a Freckle resource, and then we're also going to take a look at some of the myON resources. If you bring up this PDF, once you've downloaded it, you'll see that these are actually hot links. And if you're logged into Freckle and logged into myON, when you click on the link, you'll go directly to the resource. But I wanted to back up just a little bit. What is Freckle? You might be asking if you're not familiar with it. And what is myON? I'll start with myON first. myON, in its simplest format, is an online digital library. myON contains over 7,000 titles in the core collection, and these are actual books. So these are the digital versions of books. Every one of the books in myON has actually been published so that your students might find it in the media center or public library. myON actually hired professional voice actors and actresses to perform each of the books in the core collection. So there's a full audio component. And when we look at the myON content, you'll see that the audio is actually synced with the written words so that the student can see word and sentence highlighting and kind of follow along. The thing that makes myON a little bit unique is that there are also some literacy tools which are other resources available. And these other resources let the student actually highlight in the book, let the student take notes in a student journal, and let the student look up terms in an online dictionary, put sticky notes in so that they can reference those notes later when they might be writing. the tools that are available in myON are very similar to the tools that are going to be available to students in the new online Texas State STAR exam. So this is great practice for students getting used to using those digital tools. Freckle, also a program by Renaissance, has a math component, English language arts, science, and social studies. I'm going to stop sharing the resource right now and actually take you into the Freckle program so that we can take a look at how Freckle is organized. Sorry about that, folks. So with the Freckle dashboard, when you log in, you're at the home screen, and this is your teacher dashboard. And your teacher dashboard is going to give you an overview of what's going on with your students. You can access the activity feed, and this gives you the ability to look at different groups that you might have. It also lets you look at different time frames. And if I had any activities for my social studies students, they would actually be showing up here. You can also track assignments that you might have given students. And you can see again that you've got math, English language arts, social studies, and then science. Social studies and science are very teacher-driven components of Freckle. Math and ELA do have an independent component where students can work in the program on an independent pathway based on some assessments that actually place the student in the software. That is not true of the social studies or the science component. And reports, again, you can see there are a variety of reports for math, English language arts. For social studies, you can see some other assignments that have been made. You can also explore units from here. You can look at all of your students, and you can look across all different articles. And then you also have the ability to look at your student roster. In this portion of the program, you can actually go in and preview content, math, ELA. I'm going to go ahead and jump to social studies. And there are two ways that we can get to the social studies content, actually three ways. One is if you did download that resource that I shared with you earlier and you're logged into Freckle, you could simply click on the link that would take you to a specific unit on the Civil War. I can also type in Civil War and search that topic, and you can see it's a unit in US, and then the specific lesson unit of Civil War. I can reach that same area by jumping to US history, and when I look at US history, then I can see all of the content that's available. And I neglected to mention that Freckle is actually a resource for grades 1 through 12 in social studies. It's K through 12 for mathematics, English language arts, and I believe social studies and science. There will be some kindergarten units on community helpers and other things that do fit social studies. And again, you can see all the different topics: famous Americans, the California Gold Rush, US Civil Rights Movement, westward expansion, the American Revolutionary War, US Civil War, Roaring 20s and the Great Depression, and then Industrial Revolution. So we're going to go ahead and just take a look. You can see when I just scrolled over, we can see causes of the war, Union and Confederacy, slavery, secession, important events and battles, key figures and generals, military tactics, and surrender effects of the war. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on Civil War. So this content is actually organized into units. Every unit, every social studies unit, and the science is organized the same way, will have an introductory video. There are going to be vocabulary and then different types of activities. So when I look at the vocabulary, I can actually see, let me scroll down a little bit here. I can see vocabulary words. They come with all of the definitions. And then you can print a page for students to write their own definitions. And then there are actually a series of what could be used as flashcards. So the teacher could use this as a PowerPoint. And again, there's going to be a card for every one of the vocabulary terms. If you wanted students to copy down the definitions onto their blank sheet of paper, again, you could use this resource to do that. There are different types of extension activities, and in the extension activities, just so that you can see that a little bit better, you'll see a list of additional people that are important figures in the Civil War. You'll see other battles. The key battles are going to be covered in the main content, but this would be a more comprehensive list of the battles, and then other types of topics. And I just need to go back over here. And then there's also a timeline. And so I'll go ahead and click into this area so that you can see there's actually a very comprehensive teacher guide. So the teacher guide is going to give you all of the steps. Here are all the different dates, and then the area for students, again, to actually create their own timeline. And as I mentioned, each unit actually has an introductory video. I'm going to play just a little bit of the video for you so that you can see how comprehensive it is.
The Civil War, also known as the War Between the States, was fought between the United States of America and the Confederate States of America between 1861 and 1865. Upon leaving the Union, 11 Confederate states formed a new country that would govern itself. It's hard to believe that the country was so divided that states resorted to going to war with one another. However, there were serious concerns about how the country should be run, and so much was at stake for Americans and their beloved nation. After America gained its independence in 1776, the South established itself as the agricultural center of the country. Its fertile soil and warm climate made it an ideal place for large-scale plantations that could grow crops such as tobacco and cotton. African slaves were used as farm laborers, creating the strong backbone of the Southern economy. However, this was not the culture of the North. An abundance of natural resources in the northern states led to the development of an industrial economy, which was supported by European immigrant factory workers. In the North, there was little need for slaves, and people began to question whether slavery was cruel and immoral. Many Southerners felt that these concerns threatened the long-standing institution of slavery that was the foundation of the South. At the center of this North-South divide,
so you can see that's just about a minute and a half of this video, which is 3 minutes and 35 seconds. Each of the videos in Freckle is very short that way. So again, I just wanted to give you a taste, but there was clearly a lot of information in that video. You had dates, you had information about which states were part of the Union, which states were part of the Confederacy. You had information about the culture of the South being primarily farming culture, and the culture of the North being more industrial in nature. So again, a lot of good information to set the stage for students. You can see that lesson 2 in this unit talks about the political climate in the United States. And this is one of the 2 lessons that actually is very specific to that TEKS objective that we looked at. But you can see, here's an article about Northern versus Southern states, regional flags, slavery in the US, Nat Turner's slave rebellion, and then an activity, and then John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. And you can see lesson 3, A Country Divided, again, is going to cover information about Abraham Lincoln, an article about secession, mapping the states, and then the Confederate states. Just to show you the rest of the lessons that are in this unit, the Civil War begins, fighting the war, major battles, the end of the war, and then effects of the war. And again, you can see that all of these will fit that specific TEKS objective. You can also see here's a conclusion to the unit. So there's a video that concludes the unit. There's a unit exam and then essay prompts. Again, great suggestions for how to get students actually writing about the work that they've been doing in reading. And then there's actually a final project. And in case you can't see, the final project is that students will identify a contentious issue in the world today and then write a fictional dystopian story that imagines what the world would look like if that issue divided the US to the point of secession. So again, a great opportunity to really stretch students and let them use their imagination, but obviously have all of their arguments and their design of this dystopian world tied back to facts so that they have all the supporting facts and information. So I'm going to just scroll back up here to the second unit. And I'd like to just show you a little bit more about the article and then assigning the article. So if I click on assign article, it's going to give me the information about the article. You can see that here it says 11A. That means that the readability of the passage that you see is first part of grade 11. If you had a student that was reading at an 8th grade level, you could actually assign that article, and 8C means end of 8th grade. You've got beginning of 6th grade, end of 4th grade, end of 3rd grade. So if I just switch to end of 3rd grade, you can see that the text is a lot less complex. The vocabulary is going to be different. You can see the vocabulary over here. I'm just going to switch back to our beginning of 11th grade. And again, you can see that the vocabulary, again, is quite different. Just so that you can hear the audio, that you can see there's a speaker button, so there's a full audio component.
Economic differences.
It's not a machine-generated voice, it's a human voice. You'll see that there are writing prompts over on the side. And again, the writing prompts are a great way for students to actually show that they understand the concepts presented. You'll see that there are some great graphics that are part of this assignment as well. All the way down to some primary source materials. So I can actually assign this to my students, and by clicking the assign button, then I can say, do I want this to be just a reading, or do I want it to be reading and writing? And then do I want this to be at an adaptive level? And I'm going to say yes. And then I can assign it to my class, or I can assign it to specific students. That's a little bit more about Freckle. I hope that you found that to be interesting and helpful. I'm going to go ahead and go back into myON program now. And you can see we've got a library button. I'm going to go ahead and click on the library button. And I'm logged in as a teacher. So there are several ways that I can, if I didn't have that PDF up and available with specific titles, I want to show you how you can quickly search in myON. So I can click the search button, and then I can type in Civil War. And if I type in Civil War just as a term without any parameters or any modifiers, you can see I'm getting quite a bit of information, but I might actually be getting information. Here you see global warming, and that's because the word WAR, war, was part of the title. So that's not the most accurate way to search. I could limit this by clicking the title button and then searching. And I've gone from 200 and some books down to 119, but I might be missing a book that doesn't have the term Civil War in the title. and I'm still getting things that really don't necessarily apply. So I'm going to unclick the title button, and now what I'm going to do is put quotation marks around Civil War, which lets the myON system know that Civil War is a term, and you're looking for that term Civil War. And now you can see that I have 50 books. So I've really narrowed things down quite a bit. And we're going to take a look at this book, A Primary Source History of the Civil War. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on the title so that I can show you a little bit more information. This is an overview of the book and the book information. You can see it's recommended for grades 3 through 6. So certainly it would be very digestible for your high school students. It's part of a series called the Primary Source History series. It's guided reading level Y, and you can see that the Lexile level is 890. I'm going to click on this I, which gives me a few more details. And again, you can see ATOS level if you're using that. And you can see that the audio time is 31 minutes. So any book that does have that audio narration, the system, if you click on the I for the letter I for information, it will tell you how long it would take the student to actually listen to the book if they're using the audio narration. So I'll go back over to this screen. This allows me to read the book, which we're going to do in just a moment, but I can also click on the heart, which would add the book to my favorites, which is a virtual bookshelf. I'm going to go ahead and click R for click the green button for read the book. And I'll go ahead and start the book. And you can see, I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of the narration so that you can hear the narration.
A divided nation. Cannon fire boomed throughout and all around Fort Sumter on April 12, 1861.
And you can see that the sentence was highlighted, and then every word was highlighted as it was being voiced. The student can replay that if they want. I'll just show you some of the controls over here. If the student doesn't want to listen to the narration, they do not have to, so that's a student choice. I can actually move this forward through the page if I wanted to move to a specific part and then hear it. So this slider bar is like my fast forward on this page. This icon down here lets me actually look at a specific page. So rather than having to scroll through the whole book, I can actually look at a specific page. There is in-screen magnification, so if a student is trying to read on a cell phone, that will make it easier for the student to actually make the text as large as is needed. This lets you take advantage of a full screen. And again, this would let me add the book to my favorites. This little link down here lets me either link to a page, so as the teacher, as I'm going through this book, if I wanted to give students the URL for a specific page in the book or the beginning of a chapter, I could do that, or I could actually provide a link to the book. And when Carl was creating the resource, he actually put the link to the book as what's embedded in that PDF that I showed you, that PDF resource. Let me show you some of the other resources that are available. Many books also have other pages. There's actually a bibliography. Excuse me, I had to move my little picture over. There's a note about primary sources. There is the table of contents. There's a bibliography, a glossary, and an index. So again, these other pages are available just as they would be in the physical book. There's also the online dictionary so that I can actually type in a word if there's a word that I don't know. And it's going to tell me, give me the definition for the word.
Roar.
And it will also pronounce the word for me. I can also click on the word in the text, and I can view it in dictionary from there. And again, you see the same information came up. Let me show you some of the literacy tools. I have the ability to use the paintbrush. so that if my teacher had asked me to do some markups and what are the soldiers land firing at, I could actually select, I could use my paintbrush and select that. You can see down here, there's actually a palette of different colors. And of course, I have an eraser if I don't like that markup. I also have the ability to use a highlighter to highlight text. And so looks like this is important. This was one of the fort's defenders, and that's the person who had provided the quote. I also have the ability to put in sticky notes, and then I can put in, just so that I have a little bit more information, and then I can fold that away. And again, that's right there appended, if you will, to my highlight now. I do have other tools that I can use if I wanted to actually use different shapes. I can do those. So I have a square, circle, a line, and then I also have an arrow. And again, I have the opportunity to go ahead and remove any of those highlights that I don't like. I can also, as a teacher, use this button, Read as Student, and I can select any of my students and I go to that student's copy of the book, and I can see that Evan didn't make any of the markups that I had asked him to make. So it literally would let you scroll through every single student to see if they had made the markups that you had asked them to. I also have a student journal available. And so as a student, the student can have as many notes as they need to. And I'm going to make this one a note about the Civil War. And I'm going to actually, I like the quote from Abner, so I'm going to put some information about the book in here. And now I actually want to copy. So all I would need to do is come in and highlight what I would like copied, and then I click copy, and you can see that quote has now been copied right into my student journal, and it's also added the source as well, just so that I can quote that source appropriately. So again, you can see there are lots of great tools. There's also the ability in the settings for the student to change the audio speed, show their annotations so that when they're looking at this page, they can see whether or not annotations have been made or not, or whether they want them hidden. The student can move the buttons from the right-hand side to the left-hand side, helpful if they happen to be left-handed, and then they can turn on or off the word and sentence highlighting. So again, lots of great tools. I'm going to go ahead and exit this book and take you back to our library, and you can see it saved my search. So I'm going to go ahead and go back in with Civil War. I wanted to show you a couple of other books that are part of this series. So if I click on this one, which is the memoir of Susie King Taylor, a Civil War nurse, and I click on first person, I click on that little, you can see here are a whole series of primary sources. So you've got colonial, here you've got Confederate girl, here you've got a Civil War drummer, you've got free Black girl before the Civil War, and then the Civil War nurse, and then here's one, an eyewitness to the Battle of Gettysburg. So really, really great resources. Again, just click on one of these, give you a little bit more information. Again, this one does have the narration. You can see the guided reading level. The Lexile level is 10,050. If I click on this to start the book, and you can see, again, with the first person histories, if there is special vocabulary, it's going to give the student the vocabulary spelled out right out on the page. And again, you can see lots of information. And again, words that may have been common, like vex, is not necessarily a word that we would use as often now. Here's an important thing also, is that because this was a diary, some of the misspellings are and mistakes in grammar are from the original diary. And there are also some instances where the transcriber has had to use ellipses because the diary, they were not able to transcribe that part of the diary. I'm hoping that this information has been helpful for you and that you can see, again, if I go back to my resource, you can see we looked at this primary source history of slavery. Again, you can see, and since I'm logged into myON, if I click, has been a helpful walkthrough of both the Freckle program and myON program and how you can use them to support social studies at the secondary level for your students. Remember, if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me, Linda Bessemer, at 281-923-6190 or via email, Linda, Linda, @muses3.com. Thank you so much.